We are still going through the book From the Founding of the City by Titus Livius. The book is often referred to as the History of Rome by Livy. And now, in the previous video, or one of the previous videos, I did tell you about a situation where Rome was facing a threat of stopping to exist because there were not enough women in the city. And Romulus had to think of something to do so that he could solve that problem. And he organizes an event where he invites the neighboring cities and dominions to come and celebrate with them. And when these people come along with their families, because it was supposed to be a family kind of like event, they went ahead and took by force the young women who came with their families. And then the rest of the families had to leave. Of course, they were angry and disappointed at what Rome had done. Now, when these people went back to their homes, in particular, there were people from a dominion or a city known as Caenina. There were others who had come from Crustumium and Antemnae. These were, and also the fourth one, which in fact was the biggest of the dominions that came or that brought in a lot of people, were the Sabines. Now, these four nations, of course, they were disappointed, they were angry, and of course, they wanted to avenge, to come and fight Rome for taking away their women by force. Of these four, the king of the Sabines was the most, you can call most tactful. Like, he didn't want to react out of emotions. He wanted, of course, it was going to be out of emotion, anger, of course, but he wanted to use strategy than just reacting and going to war with this new powerhouse that was emerging amidst in their neighborhood, that is Rome. So he decides he's not going to attack immediately. He was going to take his time and do everything he needed to do so that he has a good strategy that will assure him of a win or a victory over Rome. But the other three, the Caenina and Crustumium and Antemnae, these nations decided to react almost immediately. And first they went and approached the king of the Sabines, who was Titus Tatius. And Titus Tatius kind of like told them we should wait a bit before we go attacking the Romans. But these other were impatient, and they thought Titus Tatius was being slow, and so they decided to go by themselves and attack Rome. So they attack Rome. Romulus reacts with his soldiers, and Romulus beats them. He beats them, and they ran away, flee from the battlefield, and Romulus does capture many of them as captives, and others escape back to their cities. And then somebody intervened. This is somebody that I've not seen being mentioned in other parts of the book up until this point. Maybe she's going to be mentioned going forward. And that is the wife of Romulus. Apparently, Romulus was married at this point, and her name was Hersilia. Now, what Livy doesn't make clear at this point is when she was married, or whether she was part of the women who were captured, or Romulus was married to her way before he went out and captured women from the neighboring nations. Livy has not told us up to this point where this woman came from, but what it tells us is that Hersilia intervened and talked to Romulus and told him he shouldn't go hard on these nations who had come to avenge the action of Romulus taking away their girls. He should rather, because he's already beaten them, he should rather bring them in and make them part of Rome. And indeed, that's what Romulus did. After defeating them, he goes ahead and meets them, he talks to them, and he persuades them to become Romans, and they become Romans. So out of that anger that these nations had towards Rome and trying to attack it, at the end of it was them being defeated and then being persuaded to become part of Rome, which was something that was really appreciated by the women who had been captured by Rome, because most of them now had their parents, their fathers, mothers, sisters, and brothers being part of the nation that they were now part of. But it's important to point out that these three nations were not the biggest. The Sabines were like the biggest nation. They were, even after these three, Caenina, Crustumium, and Antemnae, joining Rome, the Sabines were like an equal amount of population to what now Rome had. And the Sabines were planning to come and fight the Romans over what the Romans and Romulus did.